30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds remaining. All right, we're coming in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're live.
This is a program to help educate you on some of the issues that are vital to your understanding and way of life, and what can be done to improve it. Only when we get other views can we make intelligent choices regarding the decisions and options available to us for the enrichment of our lives. Good Sunday afternoon or evening. Truman Sigler for Personalities in the News, live from smoky Fresno, California. This show is dedicated to the memory of John Castle, who started Personalities in the News in 1964, and it ran through 2003 on several local stations. The format of this program is educational in nature and based on the constitutions of the United States of America and the Republic of California. The program today is about the state of Jefferson, comments on the so-called COVID pandemic, special guest Mark Baird or Pabia sit-in, and your call-in questions and comments. Call in Talk Radio 1550-559-899-1550. And there will be more updates about where we are today, if we have time, and how we got there. And this was based on the events of the past few weeks, happenings, and our views on them. As these are current events and still in progress, and the full story is still not out, it may take more time to research the facts. Our first topic will be on the Jefferson State, be presented by Mark Baird. Now I'm going to read our welcome to California. You came here from there because you didn't like there, and now you want to change here to be like there. We are not racist, phobic, or anti-whatever you are. We simply like it here the way it is. And most of us actually came here because it's not like there, wherever there was. You are welcome here, but please stop trying to make here like there. If you want here to be like there, you should not have left there to come here. And you are invited to leave here and go back there at your earliest convenience. I think there was a lot of people that need to listen to that and take heed. The events that have happened in the past 3 weeks are of grave importance to all of us. We must use the constructive notice process now if this great country is to survive. The law enforcement police arresting people for exercising their rights, the hijacking of protesting people by criminal factions that looted, burned, and attacked innocent people's businesses after the marches, was and is a war against the foundation and principles of this country and must be dealt with as an invasion. It is being condoned by the same political parties by inflicting unconstitutional orders, mandates of governors, mayors, and others. Destroys the trust, respect, and fear of any interaction with the officials and police. The so-called pandemic coronavirus and the reaction of the servants in government and to the edicts and reactionary controls they placed on the people. We, the people, have the power and the means to effect a change and force you servants, which we elected to manage this republic, that you took an oath to do so. We are not asking, we are demanding that you servants honor your oath and follow the constitutions. We, the people, have only the rights that we are willing to stand up for. Otherwise, we are only slaves to governments. One thing I'm going to bring a note here is a a website. The link for GavinRecall2020.com. Again, that's GavinRecall2020.com. We had their representatives on here last week, and so you should have got a pretty good indication of what's going on, and we're going to have them back. Okay. I'm going to introduce Steve Hemphley now, Director of the Free Enterprise Society, who will introduce our guest, Mark Baer, or his set-in, with his presentation on this very important subject. Steve, you got it.
Well, there's so much going on these days, but I think this is a very important topic. California is too big and too corrupt to get it under control anymore. The Constitution is being ignored. The so-called values of our elected servants here are way off base for a country that is made up of free people. And one of the things I really like that we're going to talk about today is a project called the State of Jefferson, which is a attempt to break California into two different states. And this has been going on for quite some time. In fact, we're going to hear a little bit more about the history and some of the things. This is an active project. And so who do we have on? Do we have Mark Baer on the line? Or Terry?
You have Terry on the line.
Hi, Terry. This is Terry Raposa. He is one of the people really working on this. They don't claim any titles, but he's kind of one of the people that helped get this thing in the right direction and helped get the news out about it. I know that. Tell us a little bit about your knowledge of when this thing started and kind of how it came about. I think California really does need. I mean, the number of people here is just too much under one state. The founders never wanted, government of such a big area, and we could easily break this up probably into more than one state, but I'll go with two. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit there, Terry.
Yeah, I'm here. I just am I talking to Truman or Steve?
Both.
You're both.
Okay. How you guys doing tonight?
We're here with you.
Great. Well, thank you for having us on. And the whole point is that we have to talk about the word apportionment. And I think understanding that we have one senator for every million people and one assemblyman in the state of California for every 500,000 people puts us in a position to say, how do you have representation? I know there's been it's sort of been a common position of saying we have a democracy. Well, no, we don't. We have a republic. We elect those people to represent us. But how do you represent somebody when you've got 500,000 of them, or you have 1 million of them as a senator? So I think that's the real issue. And it's not as simple as just saying, well, let's break a state in half or maybe in thirds. It's more about what does apportionment mean, and how do we educate everybody to understand that in a way to where they're not listening to a lot of things that make them want to pull their eyelashes out.
Yes, we have 120 legislators in California, 80 assembly and 40 senators. I mean, how many representatives do you think we would need for California? About 3,000 assembly?
Well, I think probably
4,000?
More than that. If you break it down to 10,000, you're breaking it down to say one for every 10,000, because you have one assemblyman for every 10,000 people. You break that down to a position of saying, okay, there's one for every 10,000, which means that they have to have staffs, or they think they do. Once you break that down, you're looking at approximately 4,000 people as being just in the assembly. Now, prior to 1964, the state of California had one senator for every county. And as you both know, in the United States Congress, in the Senate, and in the House of Representatives, we have in the Senate 2 senators for every state. We have 2 senators for a state as small as Wyoming with maybe 800,000 people, and 2 senators for the state of California with 40 million. And the reason that Madison understood that, and the Founding Fathers understood that, is they understood the fact that the smaller counties and townships at the time, when the Constitution was written, had to be represented in a Republican form of government just as much as the larger cities such as Boston, Charleston, and New York at the time. And of course, the House of Representatives would be based upon population. Up until 1964, in a decision, and remember that the Supreme Court only gives decisions, the states have to accept that as law, but that's a whole other program. The position of accepting the fact that they made a decision, meaning the Supreme Court, saying that, hey, it's one man, one vote, and the actual federal model of government that was put forth by the founding fathers isn't applicable. It's one man, one vote, was changed in 1964 with a case called Reynolds versus Sims that was the culmination of many, many cases. And that's basically what happened. And California didn't adopt that. They were still one senator per county until 1966, even though that particular opinion was adopted or presented by the Supreme Court in 1964. So I think that there's many, many things people need to be educated on as far as how this whole deal works. State of Jefferson. In 2013, I talked to Mark Baird, who is a brother to me, and Mark called me. I didn't know him, and we chit-chatted a bit. And we talked about representation, and we talked about liberty, and we talked about the Constitution. Some of the things that I had never heard before. I'd never spoken in front of people or talked in front of a lot of people before or anything like that. I had heard this from him in the simple fact that what we need to do is make sure that our voice is heard, and we're educated to do that. You can only educate yourself through knowing the Constitution and through knowing what our state constitution says, which is also another issue. But the point being is that the state of Jefferson, starting in 2013, was about representation. That was a lot of people say, well, it goes back to 1941 or before that. Well, no, that wasn't about representation, because prior to 1964, the representation was there. In your state house, you would have a senator that would represent you. That didn't change till 64. Prior to that, it was about money. Where does the money go? When we send our money to Sacramento, where does that money go? Well, we send money to Salem as far as Oregon's concerned. Where does that money go? Well, when it comes back, how does that come back, and how can we use that? And in 1941, the people that were looking at that were saying, gosh, we get this money back, but we can't use it for what we want. Number one, we're not getting our fair share because we need it for roads, we need it for different monetary things to make sure that we have mining, we have infrastructure, and we also have a position toward our lumber industries. Now we're talking about something called representation, and that's a whole different avenue. So it's basically two different movements.
Well, it's needed. I mean, we've got too many people here and too small a government, and they are really out of touch with many counties. I know it shows 23 counties on your website, and it goes all the way down to Mariposa, Stanislaus County in the south, and around leaves Sacramento out, which is a good thing. So the green, what does that mean if when the green county, so the county board of supervisors is on board? Counties with declarations.
Well, here's the thing. Basically, okay, who do the board? Who am I talking to? Who is that? Was that Steve or was that
Steve? This is Steve
Truman?
Yeah, this is. I'll only break in when it's time for a break.
Who asked me the question?
Steve did.
Steve. Okay, Steve. So to answer your question, what we're looking at here is basically, does the board of supervisors for you as a citizen, or do you have to comply to what they say? That's a question I have for you.
Well, they're supposed to listen to us, but that's not the way it works in a lot of counties, so, I noticed.
If we elect them, and we believe we're not being represented, and they disagree with that for whatever reason, for maybe a political reason, a monetary reason, whatever the case may be, then, how does that work? I think here, I'll give you the nutshell. You're probably going to have to take a break here pretty soon. I do my own radio programs. Do you guys have advertisers where you have to take a break or not, or what?
Yes, we
That's
do.
coming up.
Let's take a break right now.
Yes, coming up right about now.
Okay, well, why don't you take your break,
Okay,
and that'd be great, and then I can come back and answer that at the end of your break.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting the signal for a break. We shall be back after the station runs their ads for the people. And stay tuned to this program, and we shall be right back.
When farmers are ready to harvest a crop, there's one person they call, the farm labor contractor. They arrange for field workers to get that crop to your dinner table. These contractors are experts in food safety and are charged with making sure you receive only the best produce. As the crop is being harvested, they ensure workers have fresh water, breaks, and even transportation. The California Association of Agricultural Labor is proud to represent California's farm labor contractors. Our members put quality first, so you can enjoy savory produce that's truly Valley delicious.
You can shut down the country,
Some people in some states protesting stay-at-home orders.
but you can't shut down politics.
We believe that there's been an overreaction to the close down.
Talk Radio 1550. KXEX.
I want you to think about someone that was there for you, someone that made you feel special and made a difference in your life as a child. We have hundreds of children on the waiting list, patiently waiting for a mentor. Can that be you? If so, please visit our website at bigs.org, bigs.org. Thank you.
The following statements may be disturbing or offensive for some audiences. Life begins at the very moment of conception. Every single life is priceless. Mankind is created in the very image of God. I know that the aforementioned statements did not offend you. At least I hope not. But for many in our culture today, they are sadly offensive. I believe that every life conceived should have every opportunity to reach its full potential.
I'm a busy single mom, and the flexibility of app-based driving works for my family. I could go out there and make money, and I could still see my daughter. The Sacramento politicians passed a new law making it illegal to work as independent contractors. And that's going to force the shutdown of app-based services here. We need Prop 22. 22 protects our work as independent contractors. It will save hundreds of thousands of jobs. Please vote yes on 22.
France cases at a record high. These are your world headlines from ABC News. Health authorities say France hit more than 17,000 new infections over the weekend as a resurgence in the virus climbs higher. The government has promised steps to speed up testing and toughen measures in high infection zones to try and prevent a general lockdown. Tens of thousands of people have marched in Belarus in the latest round of mass protests against the longtime President Alexander Lukashenko. Police say around 400 people were arrested. Israel is to enter a 3-week nationwide lockdown on Friday after a second wave surge of new cases, the Prime Minister said over the weekend. Schools and malls will be closed, but grocery stores and pharmacies will remain open, and citizens will have to stay within 500 meters of their houses. And India says it is considering granting an emergency authorization for a COVID-19 vaccine, in particular for elderly and high-risk workers. India's number...
Welcome back to Personalities in the News. I'm Truman Sigler hosting this evening. Steve Hempfling is carrying the burden of the interview with our guest, and we'll chime in occasionally. Also want to let you know that the opinions and views of our hosts are theirs and the guests and do not represent this program or stations. So we had a little interesting sidebar conversation while we were off the air, and Steve and his guest are going to review that at this time.
Yes, we're going to do that, and I want to tell you we were talking with Terry Raposa on the state of Jefferson, which I think is a very, very important project, and we're on Talk Radio 1550 AM, KXEX. If you have questions or comments, you can call in 559-899-1550. We already have a comment here from a couple comments coming in on Facebook already. Lynn says, what? We would give the Democrats more of a voice in the U.S. Senate? Sounds like a horrible idea. And I'm looking at the map here. It looks like to me these are very, I don't like the word conservative, but, they're not liberal counties. It doesn't look like. This is Northern California, north of Sacramento, along the Nevada border. And and up north, and they I just don't think they're going to be two more liberal senators.
Yeah, call me at 529. Yeah.
Are you there, Terry?
I just I don't really understand what the comment was, but I'll try to do it the best I can with it. First of all, as far as the position of where people are in the state of Jefferson, when that does happen, I think the position would basically be, okay, well, do we want liberty? Do we want a position of saying, okay, we want our voice to be heard? And I think that's the main thing. The word apportionment, and whoever wrote that in, I want you to, whoever sent that comment in, I want you to look up the word apportionment. And another word that's written in the Declaration of Independence, and that would be self-evident. Self-evident is a very interesting word. I think that self-evident is something that's been written in the Declaration of Independence that people don't understand what that word means. It means that there needs to be no proof of what that is. For example, I'm talking to a person right now. I have a voice. I have a body. I have a hand. I have a foot. I have a leg. That's self-evident that happens. And the founders believe that the self-evidence of our God-given rights is self-evident. That's why Franklin said, yeah, the word self-evident, it's obvious. Now, to answer I think, if I heard it right, I may not have, I apologize if I didn't, but to understand what the comment was is that I don't know whether Democrat or Republican has anything to do with this. If your voice is being heard in the government you have, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or what you are. What matters is that your voice needs to be heard, and that needs to be heard in our form of government through the representative that we bring forth to represent us, who we elect. There is a silver bullet, and Steve and Truman, do you want to hear the silver bullet to end everything, to get it on the right course? You want to hear that?
Sure.
Might as well. You're the Lone Ranger.
The silver bullet is three things. Number one, without representation, nothing matters. If you don't have your voice heard, nothing matters. Everyone in the United States agrees with that. If your voice isn't heard, nothing matters. So, if we don't have a representative that's viewing things in the majority of their voter district, then what difference does it make? Number two, the Second Amendment protects the First. We didn't establish the Second Amendment to say, gee whiz, we need to have these guns for hunting, and we need to have these guns for this or that, or we need to protect ourselves from this or that. I mean, really and truly, that was done in 1789, and then we had just fought a war with the strongest country in the world, Great Britain. When we did that, we understood the fact that, gee whiz, we have to have some way to protect ourselves from any kind of tyranny ever happening again. This wasn't a protection against the deer or the rabbits. What, are they going to have a coup and try to take over our government, try to take our God-given rights, our self-evident God-given rights from us? No. What this was about was saying, okay, gee whiz, we need to stop this whole thing here and understand that the people should be in control of their own destiny, their God-given destiny, given to us by God, not the government. Number two, we have to understand the fact that we are looking at apportionment. So we want to fire all the bombs. How many times have you two guys heard that? Let's just get rid of them all. You guys ever heard that before? Steve?
A few times,
heard that before?
Yep.
Truman, you ever heard that before?
Oh, yeah, all the
if you
time.
don't give them the opportunity to do their job, because they have 500,000 people, they go to an area where there's lobbyists and everything you can think of, which Franklin talked about, and that is being in a position to say, gee whiz, what am I going to do here? gosh, I've been elected, and I've got all these people here hammering me in this one particular area here, these lobbyists, all this money, all this temptation. Man succumbs to temptation. So we need to have apportionment to where the people who we elect can adequately represent the people who elected them. 1 for every 10,000 might be good. That would bring it down to about 2,000 to 3,000 voters per assemblyman. Also, we have to understand that in the state of California, there are 32 different laws that the people who we elect, the assemblymen and the senators, are not subject to. They have a thing called qualified immunity that enters into judicial immunity and all kinds of different stuff, which I won't get into because, again, it's a bit it's a bit lengthy. Point being is everybody knows they're not subject to the same laws we are. So, number one, we have a position to where when we elect the officials, they have an apportionment, a district in which they can adequately represent their constituents. Number two, we take the Second Amendment that protects all the rest, protects it all. Number three, when they take office, meaning the people that we elect to do it, they have to be responsible and to also be subject to the same laws we are, and their oath of office and their oath to the Constitution of the said state and the United States Constitution is being upheld, and if they violate that, there are consequences. We're dealing in California now where we have a governor who's a criminal.
Exactly.
And there are no consequences to the criminal. There are none. He has violated Title 8, Code Section 1324. Everybody that's listening, write this down. Title 8, United States Code, Code Section 1324. He has harbored and shielded illegal aliens by using a sanctuary state. Now, let's look at the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. When we look at the United States Constitution and we look at that, it says that we gave them, meaning the federal government, jurisdiction over what? Naturalization. How can a state do that? Now, people say, well, states' rights. Well, no, that doesn't work. So I'm going to explain this really simply. And how much time do I have before a break?
You've got another at least 5 minutes.
Okay. So the deal is that basically as we look at this and we look at what's going on with the jurisdiction over immigration, here's the way it works. 13 states got together and they said, you know what? We can't coin money. We can't do this. We can't do that. We're fighting amongst each other. We're doing all this stuff. We got to figure out a way to have a central government, but we're going to limit their powers. So we're going to do this thing called the Constitution. So in 1789, they're putting this thing together, all sweating in a room in Philadelphia. It's hotter than hell. And they're sweating in this room. And they're going, okay, well, gee whiz, what are we going to do here? Here's the deal. We're going to give the government what it is that they can do, and only what they can do.
Okay, we have 2 minutes.
By this document we'll call the Constitution. And if we don't like what they're doing, we're going to do a thing called an amendment. So they started out with 10 amendments, and it grew from there. And this amendment thing was all of us, we the people, telling the government that, gee whiz, you know, if in fact we don't like what you're doing, we're gonna stop you, and 2/3 of us will get together of the states, and 3/4 of the 2/3 agree that what you're doing we don't like, or we want you to do something else. We're going to do a thing called an amendment, and when we do that, you can't do that anymore. Jesus said that my yoke is easy, my burden is light. That's what the founders did. They understood the fact. It was simple. If we don't like what you're doing, you can't do that. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, specifically states that the only jurisdiction the federal government has by cession, capital CESSION, which is a contract with agreements on both sides.
Contract coming up. We got a break going on. So stay tuned to this very, very interesting conversation. I've been wanting to do this particular thing for a long time. So stay tuned when we shall return as soon as I am advised by the engineer. And Mr. Engineer, you got it.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
ABC Entertainment News.
With Wonder Woman 1984's release moving to Christmas because of the pandemic, Universal now upping its reboot of the horror classic Candyman to 2021. It was supposed to have opened next month, and it's directed by Nia DaCosta with a script co-written by Jordan Peele. A bit of history for the Rolling Stones in the UK. A reissue of their 1973 album Goat's Head Soup has gone to #1 on the country's official album charts. It makes them the first band ever to reach that position in 6 different decades.
I'm for truth.
There is Lawrence Fishburne narrating the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's available on Audible along with Growing Up X from Ilyasa Shabazz, the daughter of the slain civil rights activist. She told ABC Fishburne brings new life into her father's work.
And really tell his story in such an amazing, inspirational, encouraging, an entertaining format.
Matt Wolf, ABC News.
When farmers are ready to harvest a crop, there's one person they call, the farm labor contractor. They arrange for field workers to get that crop to your dinner table. These contractors are experts in food safety and are charged with making sure you receive only the best produce. As the crop is being harvested, they ensure workers have fresh water, breaks, and even transportation. The California Association of Agricultural Labor is proud to represent California's farm labor contractors. Our members put quality first, so you can enjoy savory produce that's truly Valley delicious.
You can shut down the country,
Some people in some states protesting stay-at-home orders.
but you can't shut down politics.
We believe that there's been an overreaction to the close down.
Talk Radio 1550. KXEX.
I want you to think about someone that was there for you, someone that made you feel special and made a difference in your life as a child. We have hundreds of children on the waiting list, patiently waiting for a mentor. Can that be you? If so, please visit our website at bigs.org, bigs.org. Thank you.
The following statements may be disturbing or offensive for some audiences. Life begins at the very moment of conception. Every single life is priceless. Mankind is created in the very image of God. I know that the aforementioned statements did not offend you. At least I hope not. But for many in our culture today, they are sadly offensive. I believe that every life conceived should have every opportunity to reach its full potential.
I'm a busy single mom, and the flexibility of app-based driving works for my family. I could go out there and make money, and I could still see my daughter. The Sacramento politicians passed a new law making it illegal to work as independent contractors. And that's going to force the shutdown of app-based services here.
We're going live.
Welcome back to Personalities in the News. I'm Truman Sigler in this smoky Fresno, California. As you can tell by my voice, I have COPD, and all this stuff that's going on is not good for me. And Steve from the Free Enterprise Society is co-hosting this evening, and he introduced his guest who we have on the line. That's Terry Reposo of Jefferson State. Steve, you want to take it from here with Terry?
Actually, State of Jefferson, not to confuse anyone. Anyway, yes, Terry Reposa here is from the State of Jefferson. Mark Baird was supposed to be with us today, and he is a pilot for the fire service out here, and I guess he's putting out some of these fires here we're having around, which is a good thing. And it was very, very great that Terry could, fill in for me. He's right up there, very knowledgeable on the subject. So thank you, Terry. And we do have some comments from Facebook. I kind of want to go cup. This one must be from Oregon. They want to split. He'd like to split Metro Portland off the state. I mean, they're ruining it up there, he says. Another one from Illinois says they're working on separating Chicago from Illinois. I mean, big cities are trouble. I mean, I just don't know what to say. They don't seem to share the same thoughts and patterns of thinking that people in the rural areas think. We got another one here. One guy says one split isn't enough, should be several parts. I kind of agree with that, but this is going to be hard enough, I suppose. And self-evident, Pinky says self-evident without
talking about several parts in California?
Well, yeah, he wants to split California into more than two parts. That was his comment.
Facebook comment from California or from Illinois or from
Well, this one doesn't say, but I'm
from?
guessing it's California. And on Binky talks about self-evident, how that's without question. On the other hand, there seems to be a lot of people that cannot figure out things. You put a rock over your foot and you drop it, it's probably going to hit your foot. A lot of people don't seem to understand that. I mean, people do things that are not in their best interest here in this state when they're voting. A guy named Dan, he says some of our representatives quit representing all the citizens a long time ago and favoring special interest. I'm kind of in agreement with that. I think once you get elected to office, at least most of them in California, you should start serving your prison right away.
First of all, I want to address the gentleman or whoever it was that talked about the separation in California. It isn't about breaking California in half. It's about apportionment. Again, that's your homework, folks. Look up the word apportionment. Understand what you have to have a district that's going to have adequate representation. Now, if we look at that, we're looking for one assemblyman for every 10,000. Fair, large. What we have in California right now with one for every 500,000 is 300 times worse than any other state. There's no way a guy can do that, or a gal. They can succumb to something. But I want to say something about Brian Daly, who is our senator in our district up here in District 1 in California, and his wife, Megan Daly, who's the assembly person in our district up here in California. Now, their area is 25,000 square miles for the assembly, probably more than that for the senator. Now, when we look at that, Megan Daly, Brian Daly's wife, used the Democratic National Committee server for getting out her message. We have an oligarchy in California. There's no fixing it. There's people who have, I'm sure, good intentions with things like New California, but they don't understand apportionment. If you still have 24 million people, how do you represent them in a way that their voices can be heard? Remember, Madison understood in the federal model of government, every state should have what? 2 senators, every state. And that was way before we had all these people. And the Great Compromise that Madison also set up was basically putting together the representative form of government in the House of Representatives that would be adequately apportioned to the population. There was the First Amendment really was something that is in Articles the First, but again, that's a whole different thing, and I don't want to take people and again go a little too far on this. But there's a lot more to this. Bottom line is your voice being heard? No, it's not. Bottom line is, can you name one thing that the state or federal government doesn't control in your life? And I'm going to ask you that question, Steve and Truman. Name one thing for me, either one of you, that the government doesn't control in your life. Name one thing, whether it's the clothes you wear, the toys your grandkids play with, the perfume your wife wears, the clothing you wear, the light bulb you use, the gas you use, the water you drink, the home you live in. Name one thing for me, each one of you. Please name that.
My personal liberty, Truman speaking. I have taken the steps to make sure that that's what I have.
Okay, well, I didn't quite get that, my good friend.
My personal liberty, among other things.
Well, no, you don't have personal liberty. You can't even go to church. A lot of people can't even go to church because their church is shut down. Their church is shut down because a lot of the pastors and a lot of the people who run our churches don't know who the Black Robe is. I know you two do. In the Revolutionary War, there was a position where the pastors were leading the militias. They were the leaders of the militias, not behind them. And understand this. Understand the fact that there's this main concern of a lot of pastors about being subject to or beholden to what the government tells them. But remember, there's three names in the Bible: Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. Nebuchadnezzar in the Bible was put by God, by Christ, as the leader of the world. Nebuchadnezzar, as leader of the world, wanted everyone to bow down to a golden statue. And what did Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego say? They said, shove it. We're not going to do it. They were thrown into a fiery furnace, and of course, as the Bible says, and I believe everything the Bible says that there were 4 people in that fiery furnace, 4th being Christ. They were never burned, and they understood the fact that they understood that we're subject to God Almighty, not the government. Your rights being inalienable. Number three lesson is, let's talk about the word inalienable. Everybody look that up. Understand that's something that you're given that can never be taken away. So we have self-evident, that means you don't need proof for it to be there. We have inalienable, that's saying that this is something given to us by a higher power. The government isn't our higher power. And in the Bible, God puts that there with Nebuchadnezzar. And of course, everybody knows the story. Nebuchadnezzar finally became saved. He was even out in the field where he turned into an animal, eating grass with his fingernails growing long. Understand what we're dealing with here. Understand that what we're dealing with is a government right now that's corrupt, and an oligarchy in the state of California. An oligarchy, not anything singular. If you're a Republican, there are 10 Republican senators out of 40. That's 30 to 10. If you're a Republican in the Assembly, there are 17, and I just talked about Megan Daly, I think really 16, that are Republicans. Out of 40. Out of 80. Who wins that football game? No one wins that football game, because we're looking at is it's going to be up to we the people. The situation is it's no longer about a position of whether or not you need to be educated. Education is useless without action. I'll say that again. Education is useless without action. We all need something to do. State of Jefferson is giving people something to do in that position. I believe we should have 3 states in California, maybe 4, whatever people choose. But it's up to the people if they want to pursue a position of saying, okay, we want our liberty or not. Standing at a rally and all standing there crying and saying, oh, gee whiz, gosh, this is really bad. Did I say it was bad? It's really bad. It's really, really bad. Did I say it was bad? It's bad. It's really bad. And we're going to stand here and we're going to protest for a day, and then we go back to doing what we're doing until we have action in not complying with illegal actions and illegal constitutional actions. Then what's our fight about? What are we talking about? And I think that that's something everybody really needs to concentrate on. Now, we have a radio program. If you go to 1460kcnr.com, 1460, K as in Karen, C as in Charles, N as in Nancy, R as in Robert, and you go to that, you can hear a program called Jefferson State of Mine, M-I-N-E. That means it's our state. It's us. It's the people. If you go to that particular program, you can go to that website and you can listen to our program up to 6 years ago. We archive it, we podcast it every week, and it's archived and podcasted worldwide every week. We had two young men on over the last couple of weeks, one being Dr. Cordy Williams, who had 15 million hits on a video he did. And I won't get into all that, but I think that there needs to be an understanding of what do we do. You don't need to be educated. You don't need to hear it.
Okay, we are getting a signal for our third break for the evening. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, to this very, very interesting conversation, and we shall return. Mr. Engineer, you've got it.
Infections has passed more than 4.7 million. Julia McFarlane, ABC News, at the Foreign Desk in London. France cases at a record high. These are your world headlines from ABC News. Health authorities say France hit more than 17,000 new infections over the weekend as a resurgence in the virus climbs higher. The government has promised steps to speed up testing and toughen measures in high infection zones to try and prevent a general lockdown. Tens of thousands of people have marched in Belarus in the latest round of mass protests against the longtime President Alexander Lukashenko. Police say around 400 people were arrested. Israel is to enter a 3-week nationwide lockdown on Friday after a second wave surge of new cases, the Prime Minister said over the weekend. Schools and malls will be closed, but grocery stores and pharmacies will remain open, and citizens will have to stay within 500 meters of their houses. And India says it is considering granting an emergency authorization for a COVID-19 vaccine, in particular for elderly and high-risk workers. India's number of reported infections has passed more than 4.7 million. Julia McFarlane, ABC News, at the Foreign Desk in London.
When farmers are ready to harvest a crop, there's one person they call, the farm labor contractor. They arrange for field workers to get that crop to your dinner table. These contractors are experts in food safety and are charged with making sure you receive only the best produce. As the crop is being harvested, they ensure workers have fresh water, breaks, and even transportation. The California Association of Agricultural Labor is proud to represent California's farm labor contractors. Our members put quality first, so you can enjoy savory produce that's truly Valley delicious.
You can shut down the country.
Some people in some states protesting stay-at-home orders.
But you can't shut down politics.
We believe that there's been an overreaction to the close down.
Talk Radio 1550. KXEX.
I want you to think about someone that was there for you. Someone that made you feel special and made a difference in your life as a child. We have hundreds of children on the waiting list, patiently waiting for a mentor. Can that be you? If so, please visit our website at bigs.org, bigs.org. Thank you.
The following statements may be disturbing or offensive for some audiences. Life begins at the very moment of conception. Every single life is priceless. Mankind is created in the very image of God. I know that the aforementioned statements did not offend you. At least I hope not. But for many in our culture today, they are sadly offensive. I believe that every life conceived should have every opportunity to reach its full potential.
I'm a busy single mom, and the flexibility of app-based driving works for my family.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. We're going back.
Good evening again, Truman Sigler. We are back with Steve Hempling and our guest for this evening, Terry Reposo, on the state of Jefferson. And we'll have about 10 minutes here where you two can carry on and read the questions from the viewers or whatever has to be done.
I'd love to hear questions, and my last name is Raposa, but that's okay.
Okay, Raposa.
Raposa. Well, yeah,
No
we're
problem.
talking about the state of Jefferson, trying to get the state and get better representation. We're talking heavily about the Constitution of the United States, which is something a lot of people don't read, and the schools don't teach this any longer. That's part of the problem.
That's
we
true.
have Terry Raposa on the line, and it was very great that he could come on because Mark Baird was unable to come on because I think he's flying an airplane, putting out the fires up there in the hills, which I'm close to that right now. So I'm glad about that. And but we have some more comments on Facebook. He said, adding representations don't mean you get better representation. The only way to get proper representation is having principled people from to be elected, and that goes to accountability and holding people accountable. I mean, the governor and the legislature here is not doing things for us. I don't believe that at all. They're doing things to us.
Yes.
And and we got another comment from Kyle. The problem up north is that the Bay Area, L.A. and San Diego, determine the majority of the vote. We in the North State don't have representation. So, and your website is SOJ51.
And SOJ51.org, and we will have a new website here pretty soon. But I want to address the first question that you mentioned, and I think that's really an important one. The deal is that it's all about action. Whoever wrote that, whoever asked that question, it's about action. What is it that you're willing to understand and do? What is it that you're willing to stand up for? There can't be 4 or 5 of us saying, gee whiz, we want this state, that state. We want the state of Easter Bunny. The point is that what are you willing to do to stand up? Now, education is the first process of everything. I'll say that again. Education is the first process toward everything.
I agree with that.
The second thing is action. Action. Has your board of supervisors not allowed you to come in there, although they hold public meetings, but you're not allowed to come in without a mask? Well, no, in California, gosh, we know that the mask is something that basically is ridiculous. I mean, medically, we know it's ridiculous. You go in, if you're all out there wearing masks, that's ridiculous, and here's the reason why. The reason why is medically, and I would use my sources, Dr. Paul DeNuca, who was the former head of the California Medical Association, and I'll use this as one resource. A mask does not stop COVID, and I'll say that again. A mask does not stop COVID, because even if a mask could stop bacteria, it doesn't stop COVID. COVID is the virus part 1,000 smaller than the bacterial particle. But if you wear a mask or a sock over your head, whatever you choose, it probably will stop a lot of the smoke or ashes, I guess, that are falling everywhere here in California, and we all live here, and we know how bad that's been. It'll stop that, number one. Number two, if the Board of Supervisors won't allow you into the chambers, why not? Number three, we all know about the situation that happened with COVID, and that is that the CCD has already mentioned, they've already said that actually out of the almost 200,000 cases, deaths that have happened, only 9,000 can be contributed to COVID. Now, why is that? That's because COVID, if you're a hospital, you receive 3 times the money. This is a fact. This is not anything else other than a fact. Check it out. Receives 3 times the money other than the other thing you may die from. Now, all of a sudden, everything has changed. All the statistics have changed. Oh, gosh. There's only really 9,600 people that have died in the state of California from COVID. These other people had complications from other issues, but COVID was in their system. Now, COVID could be. The other question I want to ask your listeners, and other homework I'd like them to do, is when you look at a vaccine for COVID, let's look at a vaccine for COVID, okay? It mutates. I'll say that again. It mutates. That means it's like the common cold. How do you vaccinate something that mutates? Gee whiz, you can't. Again, God has given us immunities to different things. We didn't stop the Revolutionary War because of any type of pox. We didn't stop anything in our country because of any type of situation that was far, 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 far more harmful to the public than what we have now. You're either going to believe the truth or you're not. As far as Jefferson goes, yeah, we need smaller apportionment, which means for you, Joe, Nancy, Sam, You need to be represented by someone who adequately can hear what you want to say. If you're one of 500,000, you're not going to hear that. I don't care whether you're in LA or not. We have good friends. Peggy Hall in Orange County, remarkable woman. Kirk Euler, a supervisor in Placer County. By the way, Placer County just voted 5-0 that they will no longer be shut down. Because the position is that the counties are legal subsidies. Now, write this one down too, folks. The counties are legal subsidies of the state, which means that they have jurisdiction, which is a whole other program, but there is jurisdiction to where they can say, you know what, we don't want to go along with this. And your health officers, everybody, the health officers in your county, guess what? They're beholden to your Board of Supervisors. Don't let your Board of Supervisors say, gee whiz, we have no way to control them. That is BS. And I'm using BS because somebody must have a button there that they press when somebody uses profanity. Point being is that that's the deal. The deal is the power's got to be with the people. And in Jefferson, the powers will go to the county. The powers will go to the county, each county. When you send your tax dollars in, your tax dollars go in. The county receives back the tax dollars, and 87% in most of the counties in California, that money is dictated by the state of what you use it for. That's why you got bicycle lanes and palm trees and all that good stuff. However, in Jefferson, we will have 7% of that money go to the county, 13% go to the state. Smaller government. I'll go back to Madison. I'll go back to 2 senators, and I'll go back to the fact that the people are represented in the House of Representatives by population. The balance of government.
Well, no, those are good. That's the problem. These medical officers and health officers are taking over. They're not elected positions.
Board of Supervisors have jurisdiction. The word jurisdiction means control of. Your Board of Supervisors
they don't seem to know
jurisdiction over the county health officials. They have jurisdiction. They hire them. They serve at the pleasure of your Board of Supervisors. That is a fact.
Okay.
Oh, no. I like it.
Yeah.
That's the way it should be. The county, they don't stand up to the state either.
But if your county's closed, then that is the fact. Why isn't it open?
Yeah.
If you've got, and I'll leave it with this. I probably only have about a minute, right?
Yeah, I've got to interject here because we have something I have to do, and we're running out of time. Steve, I'm going to take your point for the close here on reading why it's important to vote. Then we'll go work into our closing statement for the evening. Okay, for those of you who say, I can't believe you would vote for Trump. Well, folks, listen up. I'm not just voting for him. This isn't a personality contest. I'm voting for the Second Amendment. I'm voting for the next Supreme Court Justice. I'm voting for the Electoral College and the republic we live in. I'm voting for the police and law and order. I'm voting for the military and the veterans who fought and died for this country. I'm voting for the flag that is always missing from the Democratic background. I'm voting for the right to speak my opinion and not be censored. I'm voting for secure borders. I'm voting for the right to praise my God without fear. I'm voting for every unborn soul the Democrats want to murder. I'm voting for freedom and the American dream. I'm voting for good and against evil. I'm not just voting for one person. I'm voting for the future of our country. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's for all of us, all the time. That's what this program is about, as you have heard this evening. we are talking about the salvation for you and me and everyone else that wants to get involved in this or that should get involved in this. So we are just about out of time for this evening. I want to thank our guest. And there's the sound. I have to read this now. If you like our format and topics, let us know and tell others. Our time is up for this evening. Thanks to the hosts for their views and opinions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Tune in next week, same time and new stations. Talk Radio, KXEX 1550 and Channel 32.3 Television. Truman Sigler for co-hosts and our personalities and guests. Good night.
All right. It's a wrap.
All right. Thanks, Terry.
You bet, buddy. No problem.
Thanks for coming on, Terry. Appreciate it. And we'll have you or Mark on more. I can